What I want parents to know who have young kids is that even babies pick up on changes in caregivers, they pick up on parental stress. They understand, right, things happening around them. And while, of course, the way you talk to a 2-year-old is very different than a 12-year-old, talking about it and using the word cancer and affirming the changes happening around them is so empowering.
Welcome to the Inheritance of Hope podcast. Every day, 562 children lose a parent to terminal illness. They shouldn't have to face that alone. You can pretend to avoid the painful realities of illness, grief, and death, or you can deal with the real stuff in caring community. On the podcast, people in Inheritance of Hope's community share raw, personal stories of pain, trials, and the shadow of death, which are also stories of joy in terminal illness. Find more Inheritance of Hope community at inheritanceofhope.org. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Inheritance of Hope podcast. I am really grateful that we will have a whole episode about this resource that our Inheritance of Hope families could benefit from. I'm joined today with Carissa Hodgson, who is the Director of Programs at the Bright Spot Network. They do some really incredible work over there, so we wanted to highlight what some of the resources are that our people can take advantage of. So I have a lot of questions, but why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and what drew you into this work?
My name is Carissa Hodgson, and I'm the Director of Programs and Community Outreach at Bright Spot Network, where we support parents who are diagnosed with a cancer diagnosis while raising young children. And what brought me into this space was really my personal experience of having a father who died of lung cancer when I was 7, and then a stepfather who died of liver cancer when I was a young adult. So as I entered into the world as a licensed clinical social worker, I thought I really was going to be focused on more of the clinical aspect of psychotherapy, and then very quickly realized that there was a space very specifically to help families navigating cancer. So I was the program manager at Gilda's Club, Wisconsin for 13 years, where I oversaw all of their kid and family programs, and then stepped into this role back in 2022, where now I can support families across the US, which has been quite a gift. It's really that personal experience that drives my passion, because it's a really hard experience, obviously, and to be able to show up and help parents, most importantly, help them to know that their kids will be okay. I feel like that's the number one thing I hear from parents, is parents saying, I'm so afraid that my kids are going to be totally messed up by this experience. And they say, I see you here. Not only are you an adult who seems relatively normal, but you're actually doing this kind of work. If I can provide that kind of perspective for parents, that's like, yes, your kids will be okay. This is hard, but they will be okay. I'm happy to be that for them.
That's such a powerful testimony, and the application of the work that you do, you get it. You have been in those seats before, you know how it feels. So it feels so important for you then to be giving back to this population where it's a really hard situation, and you can provide personal insight and experience into it. At Inheritance of Hope's Legacy Retreats, we have a panel of young adults who come speak to the parents and say, this is what my experience is like. I'm functioning. I'm doing okay. And it was so hard. There was a lot to heal from, of course. But this is what it's like. And I guarantee you, your kids are going to be okay. They're resilient. That positioning is just so encouraging and powerful in that situation.
That makes me so happy to hear that that's included, because I actually feel like that's sort of an overlooked piece of all of this, is people really rally to support parents. People really rally to support kids and teens. But that interplay specifically for parents who are looking at end of life, and they're thinking, not only am I thinking about the actual legacy projects, right, about ways I want my child to remember me, I can guarantee every parent is worried about, because of my death, I am actually messing up my child. That's the legacy I'm leaving, is I'm leaving them this trauma. And I wish that every parent could hear that, well, of course, grief, it is difficult and it's sad and it's a hard thing to get through. Kids will be okay when they're connected to support and adults that love them and will help them through all of the big feelings. they will be okay. And I want parents to know that.
Tell us a bit about Bright Spot Network. What is the mission? Who do you primarily serve? I know you touched on it, but we'd love to learn a little bit more.
Absolutely. So at Bright Spot Network, we support parents who were diagnosed with cancer while pregnant or while raising young children. We support parents with any cancer diagnosis, any stage, as well as their partners and children. We support parents who have any age children, 0 to 18. The primary sort of demographic we're looking at is parents of those kids like 0 to 6, 0 to 10 ish. That seems to be kind of the biggest gap out there. What we see so often from parents of toddlers, preschoolers, is that it's very confusing how to talk to a preverbal child about cancer and
Mm.
changes. And I think a lot of parents think that the best way to approach it is actually not to approach it at all. They think my kids are too young, they won't get it, so we're not talking about it. And I get that. As a parent myself, I understand where that thought process comes from. You just want to protect your kids. You're like, I want their life to be normal. What I want parents to know who have young kids is that even babies pick up on changes in caregivers, they pick up on parental stress. They understand, right, things happening around them. And while, of course, the way you talk to a 2-year-old is very different than a 12-year-old, talking about it and using the word cancer and affirming the changes happening around them is so empowering. And in fact, it's like one of the number one things parents can do to help kids not feel so stressed out. And so I feel like I'm sort of on a mission to really help parents of young kids to understand that actually it is good to talk about it. You can control the narrative. There's so many beautiful children's books that speak to those young kids to explain what is cancer in a very developmentally appropriate way. Kids don't understand cancer. Understandably, parents come into this going, if I use the word cancer, my kid will be scared. Well, this is a brand new word for children. So actually, you have the opportunity to define it for them in whatever way makes sense for you and your family and your situation. So they don't have the baggage attached to it. Use these books, talk about it, talk about treatment, explain all the changes happening around them. And when you do that, you'll see your children's anxieties come way down. And again, every family is different, every child's different. But by and large, we find that when parents talk to their kids about what's going on and maintain connections, especially with those young kids, finding ways to just show up and be with them and cuddle with them and have sort of that connection time, that's what helps those youngest kids to thrive through a parent's cancer diagnosis.
That makes me so happy. I'm a child life specialist before I came over to the nonprofit world, and it was all about equipping parents with that language, with the developmentally appropriate resources so that you can inform your family of what's going on. We have so many episodes on the Inheritance of Hope podcast of so many people from different professional backgrounds saying the same thing. You know, social workers, child life specialists, therapists, we're all just saying, have the conversations. This is so important, and you're not going to mess your kids up. You're not going to cause them more stress. You're going to equip them with the resources and tools they need to go through this with you versus they feel like they have to go on their own journey because they know something's going on. They just are kind of left to their own to figure out what's happening.
Right. Kids have such incredible imaginations, and don't we love it? It's this wonderful imaginative play, but it works against them in situations that they don't understand what's happening around them. They will use that magical thinking to make up a story, and it's usually far worse than the truth. If you don't want them making up the scary monster in the closet, give them the real information about what's happening. They'll be able to process that and understand that much better if you're just being honest. Because, gosh, kids are so smart. They pick up on new words and they overhear conversations. So they're going to put all that together to create their own story. And as a parent, wouldn't you much rather be a part of that narrative?
Explain the name Bright Spot. What inspired that name? And then also, how did the organization come to be?
I think for so many parents, especially young kids, when they're dealing with such a heavy experience and one that can get quite dark at times, what I hear from them over and over is that my young child anchors me, right? You know, young kids, they're right here, they're in the present, and they will giggle and laugh even through hard times because that's just how they're wired. And our parents say, they're the bright spot of my day. I'm showing up for them. So that's a part of it. As parents, we see our children as our bright spots, but also the sense of community, because for so many parents of young children going through a cancer diagnosis, they feel pretty alone, pretty isolated because their friends cannot relate. Like their friends are also potty training, but they're like, how are you potty training while going through chemo? Or they have their chemo buddies that are 65 and they're like, I'm sorry, what? You're having to struggle with nap time and coming to treatment? So they're like, where is that overlap? Where's my Venn diagram people? And that's what we
Mm.
provide. And I hear from parents all the time that once they find that, once they connect and see someone else that goes, I see you, I feel you. Yes, I'm right there with you. That is a bright spot in this really dark time. So many bright spots, and in a way that isn't, again, promoting any kind of toxic positivity. And it's in a very truly meaningful way that there can be those moments, even in hard times. How we came to be is that our executive director and co founder, Haley Pollock, was diagnosed with stage 3C colon cancer right after the birth of her second child. And so she was having to navigate an infant and a toddler at the same time. And people kept telling her, oh, you're so lucky your children are so young that they don't get it. Like you can go through all of this, but not have to worry about how to talk to them because they'll never remember. And that didn't sit right with her. She kept thinking, no, I know that they feel the changes, especially my 2-year old. Even though she's not talking a lot, I understand that she can sense things are changing. And so she just had this yearning to help them understand, but couldn't find the resources, anything that was developmentally appropriate to really help her with that. Not to mention having to wean before she was ready, right? Or deal with lifting restrictions. Like that kind of information just wasn't out there. So she really wanted to create community for these parents. And she found another parent through her clinic social worker, Amy Barnes, who is our other co founder. And the two of them said, yeah, this is a community that needs to exist. And Bright Spot was born. The organization began in 2020, so relatively new. And since then, we've really continued to grow and expand. We support parents in every state. So we have parents logging in from everywhere. And because we're virtual, we try to keep that accessibility pretty easy for folks.
That's so meaningful, and Inheritance of Hope has a very similar founding story where it's like, we are facing this. Where are the resources for people like me? So the people facing it created this resource so other people didn't have to feel so alone. What are some of the main services and resources you provide?
Well, because we believe so deeply in having conversations with kids and young kids, we know the best vehicle for that is children's books. Research has validated two primary variables that help reduce children's distress when a parent has cancer is to inform them about what's happening and to keep those connections. An established routine that many parents have with young children is book time, right? Like sitting down, cuddling up on the couch or at bedtime to read children's books. It's a wonderful way to capitalize on a routine you probably already have that includes
Mm.
physical touch and snuggling, and to introduce a new concept. Kids learn so much through children's books. So when you then use these children's books that describe cancer treatment, explains cancer, talks about big feelings, and you're doing that in a way that's safe and comfortable to kids, that's a great way for them to start to understand. Well, this is what's happening. This is why you don't have hair. It's okay to have these big feelings. It's okay to feel scared. You're giving them all of the tools that they need to start to understand this. What's wonderful for parents is that they don't have to make it up. And so often I'm with parents and
Mm.
they're like, I don't know, how do I explain this? This is really hard. How do I tell a 2-year old? Right. I would feel the same way. If you get a children's book, preview it first, make sure you like the message, then you just have to read the text. It actually takes a lot of pressure off of the parent as well. So all of that to say is one of my favorite programs that we offer are free books for parents. So parents can go on
Mm.
our website and request 2 free books about cancer, big feelings, grief and loss, and we'll send them the books to talk to their kids. Because we also believe in that point of connection, we have what's called a Bright Box, which is a free art and craft kit that parents can get. And what's nice about that is, again, parents just want to feel connected to their kids. And sometimes they're so exhausted, they're parenting from the couch or from the bed, and they don't have the time or energy to even gather those supplies. So we'll send them everything they need right to their doorstep so they can show up and feel like a parent for a couple of hours doing arts and crafts with their kid. We have a small financial grant for our Bright Grant, a family resource navigation to help parents get connected to local resources, or if they're looking for a little bit more of a nuanced guidance, we can do that or coach them on how to talk to kids, or especially if there's a change in prognosis. We have virtual support groups for parents, and we have many different ones happening. We have groups for parents in active treatment, early survivorship, for parents in post treatment. We have a group specifically for parents with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, a group for partners, and those again are all virtual. We have activities for kids as well. So we have a monthly activity group called Bright Circle, which is for our youngest kids, like 0 to 5. They come with their parent or caregiver. It's facilitated by child life specialists, and it's a great way for kids to start to learn coping tools and understand big feelings. We have a group called Bright Club, which is for our older kids, 5 to 10. Same thing. We send them supplies in the mail. They show up on Zoom and they get to interact and have community while learning all of these things. We have virtual teddy bear clinics, another child life intervention, because we know how important medical play is for kids. So often a parent gets cancer, all of a sudden their young child's like, I'm not going to my doctor's appointment because you go to the doctor and you come home and you are sick and tired. I don't want that to happen. And these young kids need to go to the doctor pretty often for immunizations and checkups, and we don't want that. So we have virtual teddy bear clinics where they can show up, and we led through some guided medical play to really help empower them about what happens at a parent's medical appointment and let them play that out. We have webinars and we record them. They're all on our website to watch if you've missed it, and so many curated resources that are just free and downloadable. So again, all of our programs are free. They're all virtual, so there's very little barrier. It's just about getting to the website and signing up for things as you want to receive them or attend. But you'll also find coloring pages for little kids to understand what is an ostomy, right? Ollie the otter has an ostomy, or Petunia the pig has a port. It's a great way to help really young kids start to understand medical devices or common themes like being tired, wearing a mask, being gentle, gentle touches. We just launched our new coloring book that's also free and downloadable to help kids color through cancer is what it's called, because for our youngest kiddos, keeping these concepts pretty simple but yet interactive is again a wonderful way to help them process everything that's happening to them. And what's great about these is that they have guides for parents or adults at the end to help explain further, depending on the sort of understanding of their child, how deep in conversation they want to go about each of those pages. So it really tries to be tailored to different kids and the way they process. For kids who are neurodivergent, we have a customizable coloring book. And that can be used with any kid, truly, but kind of based on social stories to really help tailor your story to your particular family. We've got a few resource tiles specific to parenting with advanced chronic or metastatic cancer, because about a quarter of our community are parents with a stage 4 diagnosis. And when that's your experience, things are slightly different and you have different concerns. And so we have some very tailored resources for parents looking at end of life. In a nutshell, that's what we provide to parents.
It sounds like it's all been very intentionally curated by professionals who have that developmental understanding of what is going on in a kid's brain. Like autonomy and independence for the child is so important in this process. Even if it's mastery over the coloring page, the child gets to choose what colors they're doing, how they want to create that masterpiece, and learning along the way, even something which to the adult brain doesn't maybe feel like it's accomplishing much, is actually very significant for a child.
And it's all done in a very whimsical way. You'll find a lot of our graphics or image. It's all like silly, sweet, and interactive. And I think that's kind of the other misnomer. So many parents, especially parents facing a pretty serious diagnosis, things feel really heavy because it is. It is to them. But from a child's point of view, that doesn't need to mean that it's very like dark and heavy to them. There's still a way for them to connect with the material and start to learn and understand and keep it relatively light. I hope that that's a bridge for some parents so that they aren't completely scared off by talking about these things. There's a way to introduce these topics that still feel pretty light and accessible for children.
And the mental associations, the imagination pieces are huge. And it reminds me of an organization I volunteered for in college called Aaron's House. And there were different rooms throughout the building. And there was like the rage room where you can rip books in half or you can throw the pillows. But one room was the hospital room, because a lot of these kids are coming because they had a family member who died or had a medical diagnosis. And to the child's young brain, they were like, I don't want to go to the hospital because grandpa went to the hospital and he died. Why would I go to the hospital? So having an entire room to play, you can move the bed up and down, you can play doctor, all those things, reform what is associated in the child's brain with some things that they're seeing regularly if they have a parent with a diagnosis.
Yes, I think those are wonderful ways to help kids.
It sounds like the best way to find these resources is on the website. but what's the next best step if someone thinks that this is for them?
The best step is to go to our website. You can sign up for whatever you want to sign up, sort of like a menu, a smorgasbord of opportunities through pretty short sign up forms. And if that's overwhelming, our contact email is there. So if folks are just like, I'm not sure what I need, they can just email and say, can we just find a time to chat on Zoom or on the phone? And that's what we can do too, is sort of handhold. I'm speaking to parents who are looking to sign up, or if you're a healthcare professional, you're like, how do I help my patients? You can send people our website to decide for themselves, or again, provide our email and we can meet with them to really tailor the experience to what they're looking for.
Yeah, and we'll have the website and some key resources. We'll link those in our show notes and also some tailored resources that would specifically be applicable to our Inheritance of Hope families and some
Yes.
easy next steps to learn more about Bright Spot and utilize some of those free resources you were talking about.
Wonderful. That'd be great.
Well, Carissa, thank you so much for sharing all about Bright Spot Network and using your own testimony of your own loss and grief to help other people navigate it and say it's going to be okay. The story doesn't end here. It's really a great resource, and I'm really excited to send Inheritance of Hope people your way.
Thank you, Ellie. I appreciate you having me on.